What if the one thing you brought into your home to protect your family became the one thing you were most terrified of? What if the silent guardian you chose was watching you with eyes you couldn't read, holding a secret you weren't ready to hear? This is a story about how the deepest fears don't always come from the dangers outside our walls, but from the unknowns we willingly let inside. For Clara, sleep had become a forgotten luxury. At 2 in the morning, the quiet of her suburban Portland home wasn't peaceful. It was loud with imagined threats. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside the window sent a jolt of ice through her veins. Her husband Marcus was a rock and ER doctor who could handle chaos and trauma on a 12-hour shift and then fall into an exhausted, dreamless sleep. But Clara, a freelance architect who worked from the quiet solitude of their home, was left to stand guard over the silence. She walked the downstairs hallway, her hand tracing the wall, her thumb brushing over the new alarm system keypad. It was supposed to make her feel safe. It didn't. 3 weeks. It had been 3 weeks since the break-in. They hadn't even been home. They'd returned from a weekend away to find the back door window shattered and a feeling of violation that clung to the air like smoke. The thieves hadn't taken much: a laptop, some jewelry, but they had taken everything that mattered. They had taken Clara's sense of safety in her own home. The worst part, the image that burned in her mind when she tried to sleep, was the sight of her 3-year-old daughter Lily's room. Her little stuffed animals had been tossed from the crib, and her favorite little bunny lay discarded on the floor, its button eyes staring up at the ceiling. The invasion felt personal, a desecration of her child's sanctuary. That was the wound that wouldn't close, and that's why Marcus had proposed his solution. He saw the problem: Clara's spiraling anxiety, her inability to feel secure. And like a doctor diagnosing an illness, he prescribed a cure: a dog. A big one. A visible deterrent, a presence that would make anyone think twice. "It's the logical next step, Clara," he'd said, his voice calm and reasonable. "An alarm is passive, a dog is an active presence." But for Clara, it felt like fighting fire with gasoline. How could she invite another unknown, another unpredictable creature into a space she already felt had been contaminated by chaos? It was here they fell into one of the most common mistakes people make when fear is their guide: the guard dog fallacy. They believed that protection had to look and sound intimidating. They searched for a dog that would bark, that would growl, that would present a wall of aggression to the outside world. They were looking for a weapon, not a companion. Clara had reluctantly agreed, worn down by her own exhaustion, but the knot in her stomach only tightened. She didn't understand it then, but the truth is that true security is never about building higher walls or finding a fiercer guard. It's about finding a way to heal the fear that lives inside you. It's about learning to trust again. She had no idea that the solution pulling into her driveway the next morning would be quieter, larger, and carry a secret far heavier than she could ever imagine. She thought she was preparing to meet a guard dog. She was about to meet Bo. And nothing would ever be the same. The man from the county shelter was kind, his voice gentle, but it did nothing to soothe the frantic buzzing under Clara's skin. Because at the other end of the leash was Bo. He was a yellow Labrador, just as the picture had shown, but photos had done nothing to convey his sheer presence. He was larger than she'd expected, with broad shoulders and a quiet, imposing stillness. His eyes, a deep, intelligent amber, weren't scanning the yard with the happy-go-lucky energy she associated with labs. They were assessing, watching. This was the moment of truth, the collision between expectation and reality. Clara had braced herself for a goofy, tail-wagging, bounding creature she would have to train not to jump on the furniture. She was not prepared for this silent, stoic observer. He stepped into their home, not with the frantic energy of a rescue, but with the deliberate, careful steps of a soldier entering new territory. And Lily, her bright, fearless 3-year-old, was instantly captivated. "Big doggy," she chirped, her little hand reaching out. Marcus had to gently stop her. "Easy there, sweet pea. We let him get used to us first." But Lily didn't see a threat. She saw a wonder. Clara saw something else entirely. The first 24 hours were a masterclass in tension. Bo didn't bark, he didn't whine, he didn't chew on a toy. He found a spot in the corner of the living room, a strategic vantage point from which he could see the front door, the stairs, and the hallway to the kitchen. And from there, he simply watched. His silence was a thick blanket that suffocated the air in the house. Clara tried to work in her office, but she couldn't focus. She felt his presence like a weight, the quiet hum of a powerful engine left in neutral. Every time she walked into the living room, his head would lift, his amber eyes would follow her, and then he would rest his head back on his paws. It wasn't aggressive. It was something she found far more unnerving. It was unreadable. This is a behavior experts often see in shelter dogs. It's called a shutdown. Overwhelmed by a new environment, new smells, and new people, they retreat inward, observing everything before they decide it's safe to let their true personality emerge. It's a period of quiet, intense data collection. But Clara didn't know that. She only knew what she felt. And what she felt was the unnerving sensation of being watched by a predator she had willingly invited into her den. She'd call Marcus at the hospital, her voice a strained whisper. "He just sits there, Marcus. He just stares." Marcus, ever the pragmatist, would try to soothe her. "Clara, that's a good thing. He's calm. He's not destroying anything. He's being perfect." But he wasn't perfect. He was a ghost. A silent 90-pound question mark living in her home. The lesson she was learning in the most painful way possible is that fear is a powerful filter. It distorts reality, twisting the unknown into the menacing. We don't see what's really in front of us. We see a reflection of the terror we carry inside. Clara wasn't seeing a dog. She was seeing the embodiment of her lost security. That evening, as she was putting Lily to bed, the little girl looked up at her, her eyes wide with a child's simple wisdom. "Mommy," she whispered, "the big doggy is sad. Why is he sad?" The question hit Clara with the force of a physical blow. She had been so consumed by her own fear that she had never once considered his. What had this silent animal seen? What pain was he carrying behind those watchful amber eyes? She was about to find out, because her fear was about to push Marcus into a confession, revealing a secret about Beau's past that would shatter everything she thought she knew and turn her world completely upside down. That night the house felt smaller, the silence more charged than ever. Lily's innocent question, "Why is he sad?" played on a loop in Clara's mind, a single piercing note in the chaotic symphony of her anxiety. It was that question that finally broke the dam. After she tucked Lily in, she found Marcus in the kitchen, and the fear she'd been swallowing for 2 days came pouring out. "I can't do this, Marcus," she began, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and exhaustion. "There's something wrong with him. He's not normal. He just watches us like he's waiting for something. You brought a broken animal into our home." Marcus, weary from his shift, ran a hand over his face. "Clara, he's a rescue. He just needs time." "No," she insisted, her voice rising. "It's more than that. You're not the one who's home with him all day. You don't feel it. You don't see the way he looks at Lily." That was the final straw. Marcus's shoulders slumped, not in anger, but in defeat. "You're right," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "You don't know the whole story, because I didn't tell you. Sit down." The command was so soft, so serious, that Clara's anger evaporated, replaced by a cold dread. She sat. "When I went to the shelter," Marcus began, looking at his hands, "I didn't just pick the biggest dog. I asked for one with a history. The manager told me about Beau. He wasn't a family pet who was surrendered. He was a washout." Clara frowned. "A washout from what?" "He was born and bred for one purpose," Marcus said, finally meeting her eyes. "To be an elite search and rescue dog. He spent the first 2 years of his life in the most advanced canine training program in the state. He aced everything. Scent tracking in impossible conditions, obedience, endurance. They said he was a prodigy. He was destined to be on the front lines of disasters, finding survivors no one else could." He paused, and the silence in the kitchen felt heavier than ever. "But he failed," Marcus continued. He failed his final certification, and the reason why, it's the reason I chose him. He described the final test, a massive simulated disaster zone, a collapsed building, smoke chaos, and hidden volunteers acting as injured survivors. Bo was flawless. He located the first target, then the second, then the third. But when he found the fourth, a woman pretending to be semi-conscious and trapped something inside him broke. His training dictated that he give the loud, clear bark signal to alert the handlers and immediately move on to find the next survivor. Time is critical in those situations. But Bo didn't bark. He didn't move on. Instead, he whined softly, nudged the woman's hand with his nose, and then laid his entire body down beside her, shielding her from the simulated debris. He refused to leave her side. When the handlers finally reached him, he was just lying there trying to comfort her. He had failed his most important test because his empathy, his deep instinctual need to protect and soothe a person in distress, overrode years of elite training. He was labeled unsuitable. Marcus finished, his voice thick with emotion. Too soft, too empathetic to be trusted with the cold calculus of a mass rescue. His greatest gift was labeled his biggest failure. Clara sat in stunned silence, the entire image of the silent, watchful dog in her living room shattering and rearranging itself into something new, something breathtaking. So when he watches us, she whispered, the realization dawning on her, when he just sits there, watching. He's not being a predator, Marcus said, his voice gentle. He's being a guardian. He's doing the only thing he knows how to do, assessing his environment, watching his people, and looking for any sign of distress so he can help. He isn't watching you, Clara. He's watching over you. She finally understood. The unreadable presence wasn't a threat. It was a vow. The silent giant wasn't judging them. He was on duty. He was a failed hero who had never stopped trying to do his job. This powerful lesson settled deep in her heart. What one world sees as a flaw, another can see as a saving grace. But knowing a truth in your head is one thing. Believing it in the face of your deepest fear is another entirely. And the next afternoon, in the bright, unforgiving sunlight of the backyard, Clara's new understanding would be put to the ultimate test. Her worst nightmare was about to unfold right before her eyes. The next afternoon, the Oregon sun cast long, warm shadows across the backyard. Intellectually, Clara understood Bo's story. She replayed Marcus's words in her mind, a comforting mantra against the steady drumbeat of her anxiety. But knowing something and feeling it are two vastly different worlds. Her fear born from trauma was a primal thing, and it wasn't ready to surrender to logic just yet. She sat on the patio steps, a half-finished architectural drawing in her lap, watching Lily chase butterflies, while Bo lay like a golden statue in a patch of sun, his eyes half closed, but still aware. The peace was fragile, and it was shattered by the buzz of her phone. It was an urgent call from a major client, a problem with a blueprint that needed an immediate answer. Annoyed, Clara answered, turning her body away from the yard to shield the phone from the breeze. She sketched a quick revision on her notepad, her mind completely absorbed for 10, maybe 15 seconds at most. It was a tiny window of time, but in that window, the world shifted. When she ended the call and looked up, the scene was wrong, terribly wrong. Lily was no longer by the butterfly bush. A cold dread, sharp and absolute, seized Clara's heart. She scanned the yard and then she saw it. Lily, in her bright yellow dress, was toddling across the open lawn, her chubby little arms outstretched, making a direct line for the one thing Clara was still terrified of. Bo had risen to his feet, his body tense, his head low, watching the small child approach. Time stopped. The warm afternoon air grew thick and heavy, and the only sound Clara could hear was the frantic, desperate pounding of her own pulse. She tried to scream Lily's name, but only a strangled gasp came out. Her feet felt like they were encased in concrete, her body locked in a state of pure primal terror. This was it, the moment she had seen in her nightmares 1,000 times, the collision of her greatest love and her deepest fear. The audience, of course, knows the secret. They know the heart of the gentle giant standing in the grass. The terror is not for what the dog might do, but for the mother who is about to witness the truth in the most heart-stopping way imaginable. Lily reached Bo. She didn't hesitate. With a child's perfect trust, she reached for his face, but her footing was unsteady on the thick grass. She stumbled, her little body toppling forward, falling directly against the dog's powerful front legs. Clara's breath left her body in a silent scream, but there was no growl, no snap. In the split second that Lily made contact, Bo's training, his true nature, took over. Instead of startling, instead of reacting with aggression, he did the one thing that had cost him his career. He lowered his head, let out a soft, almost inaudible whine, and gently nudged her with his nose, steadying her. Then, as Lily giggled and sat down hard in the grass, Bo folded his legs beneath him and lay down completely, positioning his body as a protective shield around her. He was comforting his victim. He was reporting for duty. Tears streamed down Clara's face, hot and silent. They weren't tears of terror anymore. They were tears of release, of shame, of overwhelming, gut-wrenching relief. The monster she had imagined was a myth. The protector she had desperately needed was real, and he had been here all along. It's a profound lesson that sometimes the only way to conquer the monster in your mind is to watch it be slain by a simple act of love. In that moment, frozen in the sunlight, Clara watched her daughter laugh and wrap her tiny arms around the neck of the golden Labrador. The fear didn't just break, it dissolved. And in its place, something new, something warm and solid began to grow. The nightmare was over. The real story was just beginning. The silence that settled over their home in the following days was a different kind of quiet. The tense, heavy silence of fear had been replaced by the soft, comforting quiet of peace. The unreadable presence in the corner of the room had transformed into a warm and constant reassurance. Bo was no longer a question mark. He was the answer. The change was made up of 100 tiny, beautiful moments. It was Clara working at her desk, feeling a heavy head rest gently on her feet, a silent promise that she was not alone. It was finding Lily fast asleep on a pile of blankets curled up against Bo's side, her tiny hand resting on his golden fur as his chest rose and fell in a slow, steady rhythm. He had become her shadow, her steadfast guardian, his watchful eyes following her, not with suspicion, but with a quiet, unwavering devotion. And it was in these moments that Clara understood the profound truth of their journey. They had sought out a dog because they wanted a protector, imagining a creature of barks and teeth that could guard their walls against the dangers of the outside world. But what they received was something far more powerful. They didn't get a guard dog, they got a guardian of the heart. Bo's true purpose wasn't to keep intruders out, it was to heal the wounds that the intruders had left behind. He didn't guard the house, he guarded their peace of mind. One night, about a month later, Clara woke to a sharp noise from downstairs, a branch scraping against a window in the wind. The old familiar ice of panic began to creep into her veins. Her body tensed, ready for the familiar spiral of fear. But before it could take hold, she heard a soft sigh from the foot of the bed. She looked down and saw Bo lift his head, his ears twitching as he assessed the sound. After a moment he deemed it unimportant and laid his head back down with another quiet sigh. And watching him, seeing his absolute calm, Clara felt her own heartbeat slow. The fear simply melted away, replaced by his certainty. He had become her anchor in the night, her barometer for safety. She was finally truly safe. She reached down and rested her hand on his side, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. It's a beautiful reminder that in life we don't always get what we think we want. But sometimes, if we are incredibly lucky, we get exactly what we need. Bo's story is a powerful testament to the healing connection between humans and animals and the hidden strengths that often lie in what the world perceives as flaws. Have you ever had an animal in your life that changed everything for you? A rescue that rescued you back? Share your story in the comments below. We would absolutely love to read them. And if this story touched your heart, please show your support by giving it a like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another story like this one. Make sure to hit that notification bell because we have so many more incredible journeys to share with you. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next story.